I want to start by talking about the rehabilitation, Bureau of Rehabilitation bill, which the government is bringing, because I have never seen such a bill, or I have never seen such a law in this country ever before. Soon after the World War II, several countries, including Sri Lanka, being horrendously shocked by the atrocities which were committed by the Nazis, pledged and promised and declared in the Universal Declaration for Human Rights that they would respect and under no circumstances certain human rights can be removed or can be denied to human beings. Several countries, including Sri Lanka, promised this. This was in 1948 onwards, and then in 1978 we brought several of these human rights, including the right not to be tortured, the right, the freedom of thought, conscience and religion, the right not to be tortured, the right not to be arbitrarily denied of our liberty. All of this was brought into our fundamental rights chapter. Today, after nearly 4 decades, Ranil Wickramasinghe government, backed by the Rajapaksas, has brought this Bureau for Rehabilitation bill. Now, I want everyone to take this very seriously and read this carefully, because in the Bureau for Rehabilitation, you don't need, the government does not need your consent to put you into rehabilitation. It does not need a court order to put you into rehabilitation. Once you go into the rehabilitation camp, forced labor can be extracted from you. You can be tortured, you can be ill-treated, you can be wounded, you can be neglected in this camp. You can be force-fed with dangerous narcotics. And if you try to protect yourself from abuse, that is an offense. You can't protect yourself from abuse in this bureau. If you try to escape from this bureau, then the military and the police can come and drag you back into the bureau. If you try to disobey any orders in this bureau, that also, they can compel you to obey these orders by force. That is what this bill says. And I'm not exaggerating one bit. So, as citizens of this country, the bill says, yes, it is for ex-combatants, yes, it is for members of violent and extremist groups or whatever, but it also says it's for other groups. So as citizens of this country, you can ask yourself whether you want to live in a country where the government can drag you into camps simply because you dissent against the opinions of the government and torture you into submission. You can decide that. And if you think that is not the country you want to live in, then you pressure the 225 people sitting in parliament to not pass this bill. I also want to highlight that it is 50 days since the arrest of Vasantha Hashan and Siridhamma Thero. And for 50 days, these 3 boys have been kept in isolation, in dark cells, under horrendous conditions. And few days ago, a responsible member of the parliament went in parliament and said that Vasantha Mudalige is being taken around in the night and he could be killed. Now imagine if Vasantha's parents and Vasantha's brother is watching this. Who is answerable to what the mother is listening when a parliamentary member says, when a member of parliament says he could be killed? So not only are these irresponsible statements, but also we have allowed boys who led the struggle, who gave us courage to hope for a better future, to remain in these dark and isolated cells, and for the state to call them terrorists. And it is on our conscience that we have allowed this to happen for 50 days. So I will also allow you to decide for yourself whether you are okay with 3 boys who have led this Aragalaya to be called terrorists and to be detained and tortured in dark cells until today. Thank you.
So today is the 50th day that Vasantha Mudalige and Siridhamma Thero are being kept inside, are being detained without a court hearing. So the evidence against them, if they have any, has not been presented to a judge, has not been argued between 2 lawyers, or a jury hasn't decided that they are guilty. So they are being called terrorists just because the leaders of the country, the decision makers, can do so. So this is not something that only Vasantha and the Siridhamma Thero are facing right now. This could be any of us. It could be me, it could be you, or worse, it could be your child, it could be your son or your daughter. So I'd like to draw your attention onto this issue because Vasantha, Siridamatero and Hashan who was released on bail today, they all got out on the streets and we all fought for a better country, for a better future for Sri Lanka. Because for crying out loud, we are bankrupt. That is what our leaders did, right? They took loans over loans and they corrupted our country until we couldn't find any other solution other than getting out on the street and protesting. So this is the crime that Vasantha and Siridamatero are being accused of, because they could envision a better future for Sri Lanka, and they took the leadership in going to the front lines to take over, to show the path for rest of Sri Lankans who came out to fight alongside us. So if anybody is a terrorist or if anybody is a criminal, it should be Ranil Rajapaksa and the goons around him, Mahinda Rajapaksa, Namal Rajapaksa. These are the people who bankrupted our country. These are the people who stole our money. They are the people who stole our future. Vasantha hasn't done any of those. Vasantha hasn't bankrupted our country. If at all, he asked for right to life for all of Sri Lankans. And why is he being punished while the real people, the criminals who actually committed crimes, are in the parliament? There is a man convicted for murder in the parliament. And if the system allows such man to be voted into the parliament, that system should be changed. This is what Vasantha was speaking about. And I don't understand why are we still sitting back and watching this. Why are we watching this injustice, which could be happening to any of us at any day? And now they're bringing in another law. They're bringing in a Rehabilitation Bureau bill. And on that, they're talking about ex-combatants. They're talking about other groups. They're talking about extremists. If there are any, we saw extremist action in Digana some few years ago. We saw extremist actions in all around Sri Lanka. And if you remember, Easter attacks. Yeah. Do we have justice for that? Have you seen justice for that? And do we see them bringing in laws to take into custody for people who are liable for that? No, there's nobody responsible for these crimes. But the people who spoke up for the others, people who spoke on behalf of the others, are being kept in jail, are being detained without following the judicial procedure. So once again, I'd like to remind, if anybody is misguided, it is the people in the parliament, it is these decision makers, that is the leaders who bankrupted our country. Because for some reason, they tend to think by corrupting and by taking more laws, by printing money, that we can be developed somehow. Please tell me if that is not being misguided, what else that is. So I want to urge all of Sri Lankans and the international community and the people and the Sri Lankans who are living abroad, everybody who spoke up, everybody who even shared a post on Facebook about the Aragalaya, about the people's struggle, please do speak up, because this is injustice, because Vasantha Mudaligi does not belong in a jail cell. He spoke up for the rights of others, so now we should be speaking up for him. And we should be speaking up for justice for all. We should be speaking up for rights for all of Sri Lankans. We saw the power of the people on the July 9th when people came out to the streets. We saw sovereignty of people. And this is the time that we need to exercise these rights for justice as well. Because if we want to develop this Sri Lanka, we need innovative ideas, we need new ideas, we need people who can think outside the boxes. People who are not scared to speak the truth, people who are not going to bow down in the face of injustice. Vasantha Mudaligi is one such person, and there are several others like that within the Gulf-Face Aragalaya and all over Sri Lanka. So if we want them to come in front, if we want them to, if we want their ideas to support the growth of Sri Lanka, if we want a better Sri Lanka, we shouldn't allow this injustice to continue. Aragalaya Jaya.
The news රිපෝට වාරණයෙන් තොර අපක්ෂපාති වාර්තාකරණය